1 mile home. The warehouse rumbled against the nor'easter raging outside. The steel frame shuddered against the icy blast. David locked up his office and walked down the hallway, muttering a silent thanks to the inventor of the automatic start on his SUV. He placed his laptop case and lunchbox on the counter at the security office and turned to the in-out board for management. He flicked his tab, David Allen, security manager, from in to out, and turned back to the office where the security officer, Nancy, peeked into his bags. "Cold night out, David," she said, as she glanced in his case and box. "You drive safe on the way home. I hear it's a rough one." She pushed his belongings toward his side of the counter and leaned out, glancing at the white fury blowing right outside the front doors. "I'll be fine, don't you worry. I live just across the river. You all be safe tonight. Don't do your rounds till this wind dies down." David turned to the door, then paused. He took a step back and said, "Hand me the phone and hit the extension for the gate, please." Nancy removed the phone from the receiver and handed it to him. She pressed the button labeled Truck Gate, and the line trilled in his ear. "Truck Gate, Mike speaking," David heard. "Mike, David here." He leaned his head through the window of the security office and looked at the monitor bank on the far wall, most of them just showing blowing snow. "You stay inside there unless absolutely necessary. Use as much salt as you need, and make sure they plow up there. I don't want any trucks sliding into the building, you hear me?" "No worries, boss. I'm not green. I know what I'm doing." "I know. Just be safe out there tonight. It's a bad one." "Good night, boss." Mike laughed before hanging up the line. David handed the phone back to Nancy with a nod. "Get you out of here before it gets much worse," Nancy said as she returned the phone to the receiver. "Give that little girl of yours a hug for me, won't you?" "You bet. I'll see you tomorrow." David grabbed his case and his lunchbox. "No, you won't. I'm taking vacation tomorrow. Taking my granddaughter to see some new movie at that theater over in Topsham, so I took the night off." "Oh, that's right. Sorry about that." "No problem. I'm just a second shift grunt. How can I expect the bosses to keep up with my comings and goings?" She smiled and winked at David as he placed his hand on the door. "You know better than that," he retorted. "Enjoy the movie tomorrow. Hope you have a blast." He pauses as he opens the door. "Call me if anything weird happens to that tonight, won't you?" "Of course, boss. Go home. Rest up." She leans to look out at the storm again and continues. "You'll need it to dig out of this one. Weather says we've already gotten 2.5 feet with more on the way. Oh, and next time we have a big storm, you might want to wear your snow pants." She pointed at his jeans and clucked her tongue. "Don't worry about me. You guys just stay safe and warm tonight. I'm just going to my car. I'll be fine." David smiles as he pulls his face mask over his head, zips up his jacket, and pushes his way out of the entry. The wind fights against the door as he slips into the frigid, blasting wind. He squints his eyes as the icy wind stings them. He used his knees to break the snow as he trudged through the unplowed portion of the parking lot toward his SUV. At the far end of the lot, the yellow flashing lights from the snowplow are all he can see of the monstrous piece of equipment. David reaches his vehicle, opens the back hatch. Setting his bag and lunchbox down, he picked up a brush and small snow shovel. He worked with haste to clear the vehicle, brushing off the elbow-deep snow from the top before moving down to the windshield and hood. The wind roared, stinging his eyes, a blast of snow and ice. By the time he finished, a half-inch had accumulated over his car. After tossing the brush into the back seat, David waded through the snow to the back of the SUV. He dug massive heaps of snow away from the back tires and used his body to knock down the plow line, walling his vehicle into the spot. He stopped after tossing the last shovel of snow away from his car and leaned on the shovel, huffing loudly. Large puffs of vapor escaped his mouth only to be swept away by the howling wind. The heavy, white flakes buffeted against the windshield as David pulled right out onto the main road. His headlights illuminated only a few car lengths ahead of the bumper. David squinted as he followed the road, more by memory than by being able to see the asphalt beneath the thick covering of snow. Peering out of his passenger window, he saw the nor'easter swallow the bright lights of the warehouse that usually illuminated the sky for miles around. He looked back to the road and leaned forward, his forehead close to the glass, close enough that David felt the cold wicking from his forehead. He continued through town, past the abandoned mill, relics of the past glory of Raven's Bend, Maine. The frames of old buildings outlined in the deepening snow blended into the white of the storm as he drove past. A plow rumbled by, and David felt the vibrations in his feet. He continued at a snail's pace, keeping his head forward, eyes focused. He slowed to a stop at the light before the green bridge that leads to the rural outskirts of the town and toward home. The blinker clicked in time with the wiper blades as he waited for the light to turn. His tires spun as he pulled forward and left at the light. On the bridge, he felt the wind pushing the side of the vehicle, and he fought to keep it in a straight line. Once over the bridge, David turned left again, past the rollerdrome, lot empty, lights off. No loitering teens waiting for their parents to pick them up on a night like tonight. David knew the river ran just to the left of the road, but with the visibility there was no indication of the waters of the Androscoggin River flowing beyond the white. He kept driving, and the faint lights of the town disappeared into the blizzard, replaced with the dim outlines of pines briefly showing through the whiteout, only to fade as well. No other cars traveled the road along the river. David gripped the wheel as the vehicle pushed through the thick snow and feathered the gas pedal as he rolled into the rural section of Ravens Bend. After 15 minutes of driving at 10 miles an hour, David finally came to his road. He took care as he turned right to stay away from where he assumed the curb lay beneath the accumulated snow. He eased back into a straight line after the car slid coming out of the turn. David's knuckles whitened as he gripped the wheel. Coming down the hill, he picked up speed to help him on the next incline. His car slowed on the uphill, but managed to make it to the top. "Damn it!" David exclaimed as his headlights illuminated the snow drifting into the road from his open field to his right. The drift made his lane undrivable. 4 feet of snow crept into the road and seeped into the middle. The wind tore through the farmland unburdened. The blinding snow flew horizontally past the windshield. David slowed to a stop, then pulled into the opposite lane. He eased forward as the wind whipped around his SUV. He turned the wheel slightly to the right as he felt his car pulling with the blast of wind. He looked at the GPS on the dash. 1 mile home. Not too much farther. He felt the plow vibrating in his car before he saw the headlights. That brief advance notice allowed him to jerk the wheel to the right. His car plowed deep into the drift, burying the hood into the snow as the plow sped past him on the left. As the vehicle dove into the deep snow, the engine sputtered to a stop. Shaking, he sat, gulping down deep breaths of air and flexing his fingers. In the rearview mirror, the plow disappeared into the muted white of the storm. David turned the key to the ignition. The dash lights lit up, but the engine did not start. He tried 3 more times to no avail. David closed his eyes, took a few deep breaths, flexing his fingers as he breathed. "Please start," he said with his eyes still closed. He turned the key. Nothing. David swore again as he slapped his hands down hard on the steering wheel. He leaned over the passenger seat, retrieved his coat, and dug through his pockets to retrieve his phone. David pressed the number 2, and the display read dialing home. After 6 rings, the answering machine came on. "Hi," his wife's voice said over the phone speaker. "You've reached Abigail and David Allen. Please leave a message after the beep." David rubbed his forehead as a shrilling beep screamed at him from the phone. "Babe, I'm down the road from home and buried the car in a snowdrift. I'm about a mile from the house. I know I was supposed to be working until morning, but I was able to leave early. Call me when you get this." He hung up the phone and placed it on the dash. He drummed lightly on the steering wheel while watching the phone. "Call me." He drummed a little faster. "Come on, honey, call me back." The phone remained silent as the only audible sound came from the howling wind and pattering of snow striking the windshield. David struck the steering wheel as hard as he could. "Can't believe I did this." He shook his head and tried his house one more time on the phone. When the answering machine picked up, he immediately hung up and tossed his phone to the passenger seat. He rested his forehead against the steering wheel as the wind whipped around the vehicle, already drifting snow over the hood and up onto the windshield. David checked his phone again, pulled his coat into his lap. He clenched it close to his body before inserting his arms into the sleeves. Zipping the coat, he let loose another swear, then pulled his knit cap over his head and exited the vehicle. The wind and snow whipping around his face stung his eyes. It ripped the door from his hands, slamming it shut. David looked up and down the road, squinting to see the plow, but visibility remained low. He turned toward home and waded through the waist-high snow to where it only came up to his calf. 1 mile to go, David whispered. He pulled his face mask over his mouth and tightened the hood around his head as he began to trek through the maelstrom. He trudged through the thick blanket of snow as the snow intensified. David searched with the tip of his boot until he found the edge of the road, tried to keep his feet along the crumbling asphalt buried beneath the snow. He meticulously placed one foot in front of the other as he pushed against the wind. 1, 2, 3. David counted his steps, trying to keep track of his progress. He looked back to see how far away from the SUV he had walked, only to see the white wall of snow blowing sideways. Looking back in the direction he needed to go, David continued his trek. The wind shifted, and he fought to stay upright, flailing his arms to maintain his balance. David's eyes stung from the assault of ice and snow pelting his face. He held one hand in front of his eyes as he walked. He lost all sense of time and distance as he stumbled in his count. He fumbled in his pocket and brought out his phone. It lit up, but before he could check the time, it slipped out of his gloved hand, falling into the deep snow. David swore, dropping to his knees. He fumbled around at the drift, searching for any sign of his cell. He took off his gloves and set them on the snowdrift, then dove back in. A low vibration in the snow, different than the wind, gave him a pause. It grew more intense. David felt it rattling his feet and into his legs. Looking up, he saw the plow barreling down the road toward him, the driver oblivious to David's plight. David dove into the right, just as the plow roared past like an angry beast chewing through the snow. The cascade of snow from the plow washed over David like an ocean wave, burying him beneath feet of heavy snow. David slowly cradled his way back into the freshly plowed road, shouting in vain at the fading tail lights of the snowplow. He turned and looked at the path of the road, freshly plowed, and breathed a sigh of relief. He stuck his bare hands into his deep pockets and walked toward home. David felt the cold leaching from his body. Snow stuck to his eyebrows and lashes. His face mask frosted over from the vapor of his exhaled air. As he pushed onward, his limbs grew heavy and his footfalls plodded along the road. David noticed the snow thickening on the road as the wind drifted it down and across the open field. The recently cleared path of snow disappeared as the storm reclaimed the road. David kept shuffling forward, trying to keep his foot on the pavement, his visible path forward vanishing into the storm. His heart skipped and his stomach turned as he lost the sensation of the asphalt. "No! No! No!" David screamed as he kicked his feet around the snow. He searched in vain for the hard edge of the road, but only felt the crunch of snow and ice beneath his feet. He twirled around, looking into the gray white swirling around him. David fell to his knees and let the wind buffet him. "Come on, it was only 1 mile!" David shouted into the storm. He stood and squared himself off against the wind. Picking a direction, he set off into the snow, into the storm. The fuzzy static of the nor'easter swallowed him up, and he disappeared. In the morning, the wind had finally died down, and the sun blasted bright upon the blanket of snow left from the storm the night before. A silence permeated the fields, only broken by the whispers of snow falling from the boughs of pines. 1 mile from David's home, his red SUV remained buried deep in the drifting snow, blinkers still ticking along in a slow rhythm. All traces of David's trek from the night before had been blown away during the storm. No footprints, no swath cut through the snow, no sign of his passage told his tale. The only trace left of David's walk lay within sight of his house, an old white farmhouse framed against the morning sky with smoke gently pouring from the chimney. At the edge of David's property, near the barbed fence of the neighboring cattle field, a piece of blue fabric, the sleeve of David's coat, flapped in the wind. The wind pulled back the sleeve to expose David's blue, icy hand as he lay entombed beneath the hard-packed snow.